Welcome everyone to Male Fuzz Movies. It was suggested to me that perhaps doing a preview, a short preview video for what's coming up on the movie shows for the next few months, the next quarter basically, because we're at the start of April still pretty much, just sort of previewing the type of movies we're covering on the movie shows, particularly Ace and Collector's Cut, since those are a bit more locked in. Screams isn't mapped out as much past the next few weeks, but I'll give you a sense of what to expect somewhere around there. Especially since some people like to, try and watch the movies before we have the reviews coming out, so they can join in the conversation and have seen them already. So I'll start off with Collector's Cut, which is in some ways is the easiest one because it's in these big blocks of the seasons. Right now, we're finishing up the 2025 season, which has a couple of episodes left. We've got Secret Agent coming out this week, with the finale of the season being Chan-wook Park's No Other Choice, which will wrap that up. I'm very much looking forward to that one myself. But following that, in the end of April into the middle of May, we've got a little 3-episode season, which was picked by one of our supporters, who won the right to pick a season via the streams I do on Twitch some months ago. And that's going to be what we're calling Her Story, which is basically 3 films about prominent women in America who did something important. And the 3 films we're going to be talking about there are She Said, On the Basis of Sex, and Hidden Figures. So all kind of like historical, relatively modern historical movies based on true stories. So that's going to be a little mini season there from near the end of April into the first couple of weeks of May. And then the season that kicks off in the middle of May, and it'll take us all the way through to the end of June, which is kind of the end of this little season I'm previewing here, is going to be a John Woo season, particularly his films that he made in Hong Kong. And I'll tell you what those all are. I'll tell you all 7 of them. We're doing them in the order they were released originally. We're going to be looking at Heroes Shed No Tears, A Better Tomorrow 2, The Killer, Bullet in the Head, Once a Thief, and Hard Boiled, and it feels like Hard Boiled is maybe the most famous of all those movies, so it's kind of neat that we get to end on that one. So really looking forward to that. That's one that's been brewing for a little while. And there is A Better Tomorrow 3, which almost was kind of just slotted in just for the sake of finishing it, even though John Woo didn't direct that one. Instead, we'll probably try and slide that into a more general sort of season where it can also fit maybe in the next year or two, so that we get to that third one. Because it's a 3-movie series, and it feels kind of weird only doing 2 of them. But we'll find a place for that third one, just to finish that off neatly. But John Woo didn't direct that one. And also, we had to kind of have this season end by a certain date so that we were ready for something that's coming right after that. Which I will tell you, because it's kind of like a 1-week, 2-episode season, which is Supergirl. We're going to do a thing where Collector's Cut will get 2 episodes 1 week, where on the Tuesday you'll get the 1984 Supergirl, and then at the weekend you'll get the new Supergirl. And as a result, the following week after that, there'll be 2 episodes of the Ace. So basically, they're just kind of swapping an episode each for those 2 weeks. But that's what's coming up at the end of June. And then, I mean, the Supergirl, the new movie, the episode, that'll be out on the 4th of July, funnily enough. So that's what's coming up on Collector's Cut for the next, almost 3 months. So that's cool. Moving over to the Atomic Cinema Experiment, or sci-fi podcast. Obviously, we've got a lot more variety here. There's a couple of episodes that are going to be votes for patrons to vote on. I might even tell you what the votes are going to be if they're locked in. But coming up next, we've got War Machine, which is a Netflix movie from this year, just from about a month or so ago. Then we had a vote on Patreon for some kind of obscure 90s movies. So the week after that, we'll be looking at No Escape, starring Ray Liotta. Not expecting high art from that one, but we'll see how it is. I think you can find that quite easily if you go looking for it on the usual video platforms. You might find it for free. And then after that, at the end of the month, annoyingly, Star Wars Day is on a Monday, which is the day before the Ace comes out. So we're going to have a Star Wars review about 6 days early. But our next Star Wars movie is The Last Jedi, which can't say I'm looking forward to getting to that one because of all the stigma surrounding it, frankly, because of all the the harsh opinions for or against since that came out, but it's next on the list. We got to get to it, so that is there. Then kicking into May, we have Ghidorah, the three-headed monster, the next in our Godzilla series of reviews. Looking forward to that one because I happen to know I like it quite a bit. Unfortunately, the week after that, we're catching up on a 2026 release starring Chris Pratt. It's called Mercy, and it looks terrible, but we got to do it. Following that, we have the winner of a Patreon vote that just ended recently for Signs. So we're doing the Shyamalan film from 2002. Now, there's a little bit of an empty spot or two here after this. There's a chance, depending on how some streams go in the next few weeks, that we may be slotting in the old and new Masters of the Universe films on Ace around here. So it's a little bit up in the air, but those are kind of in contention. And then from there, we're going straight into kind of some vote winners potentially that we've not had votes for yet. I will tell you though that those votes that are coming up are, there's going to be one for some 1950 sci-fi movies and then another one for some 2010 sci-fi movies. And those are both going to have their winners in June and get into the start of July. Elsewhere though, in June, just to sort of finish that off, we have another catch-up movie from late last year. We got Tron Ares to do, which I'm not looking that forward to be honest. I'm not that fond of the Tron movies, and I'm not fond of Jared Leto's, so we'll see how that goes. But then, of course, we have a big new release in June. We have Disclosure Day, so we'll be going to the theaters to talk about that one. So we might do a similar thing with that we did with Project Hail Mary, where we swap Collector's Cut and Ace's days around so that you get Disclosure Day a little bit earlier than you otherwise might have. But we'll see. We'll see when we get closer if that's going to happen. And that takes us up to the Supergirl takeover for that week at the end of June, going into July. So that is Ace for the next few months. So some exciting stuff in there, and some stuff that we have to catch up on, which I'm less enthusiastic about. But we don't shy away from the bad movies. We can't. We have to dive in. So that is what's coming up, barring the vote winners on Ace. Screams After Midnight is a little bit less mapped out. I can tell you what's coming up in the next few weeks. I can tell you that this week, assuming this goes out before Screams comes out, we have Shelby Oaks from last year. And then we've got Influencer, which is not a super new movie. That's from a few years ago. But the reason why we're doing that is because after that, we're going to do Influencers, which was a sequel that came out in 2025. And after we've done that, we finally get to do our top 10 horror movies of 2025. I am looking forward to that list. I think it was a pretty strong year. There was a lot of titles to pick from. I think there'll be some good discussion there, and I do think there'll be some quality bad movies to make the worst list as well. So that should be fun. Currently, as far as new releases go, getting into May and June, we're looking at Hokum in early May, and then in early June, possibly Backrooms. I say possibly because sometimes it can be a little bit murky with the smaller horror films if we'll both have access to them in theaters. Sometimes if they're limited, one of us may not have them, we may not get them at the same time. These things can kind of push stuff around. But those are at least tentatively scheduled for their theater releases, those two. What isn't scheduled for its theater release that you might have been expecting is The Mummy, which is coming out in late April. Now, why is that? Well, to be frank, it looks terrible. Now, I'm not saying we won't review it. Like, we'll review it when it's, available at home later in the year, we'll get to it. But when I got the trailer for that movie the other week, I, was almost had an out-of-body experience, feeling pain of the thought of having to go to the theater to see it. So, I spoke to Tim, we're pushing it till later in the year. We will get to it, not to worry, but just not when it's in theaters. Otherwise, no exact weeks for these yet, but my plan, once we've done our top 10 of the year, barring there's no 2026 movies slotting in that come out of nowhere, because sometimes that happens with streaming services or some small films, the plan is to try and make sure we get in our next Hammer Dracula movie, because we're almost at the end of that series, so I'd like to get another one of them done in May, as well as, unfortunately, the 5th Resident Evil movie, so that we keep that ticking along, because we want to be done with those 6 movies before the new one comes out in September, October, whenever that's scheduled for. So we're planning on getting those snuck in around there. Like I said, they might move around a little bit, just depending on what new movies comes out and what weird thing Tim finds for us to do in the meantime. But you can also expect, though, that not too long after that, we'll be going back to stuff that came out at the start of the year that we didn't get to, either because we couldn't or because we chose not to. Something like Primate, for example, will probably be slotting in. Something like The Strangers Chapter 3, sadly, it will probably slot in sooner rather than later once we get into that sort of June period. But again, not exactly mapped out on streams. It tends to be a little bit more free-flowing compared to the other 2 shows. But that is, and the reason for that is because there's so many new releases for horror. Like, there's so many new releases constantly. Sometimes they come out of nowhere. Things don't get locked in quite as much as the other 2 shows do. So yeah, that is the plan for the 3 shows. And just alongside that, I'll mention Extra Reels, which is our show that we do for patrons and for YouTube members once a month, where we review some really, really bad movies, some of the worst movies ever made. For this month in April, we are looking at, admittedly not that bad a movie, but we're looking at Riccio, the Story of Ricky. That's coming this month. For May, we had a vote for some big heavy hitters, some of the big classic bad movies, and The Room won. So we'll actually be finally doing Tommy Wiseau's The Room on Extra Reels in May. And then for June, towards the end of June, to tie in a little bit with Supergirl coming out, we are going to be reviewing the Catwoman movie, because it's, another female hero, another DC character. The timing's just right. The timing is right to do Catwoman. So, and I've never seen Catwoman, so I don't know if excited's the right word, but like, there's potential there. There's potential for comedy gold. I've seen the basketball clip. That's all I've ever seen of that movie, is her trying to move a basketball around and somehow doing it worse than I think even I do. So looking forward to seeing how that goes. But that is Extra Reels. So aside from that, there'll be more scattered Fuzz thoughts, little 2 quick reviews from me here or there. I would like to try and squeeze in some other non-review things occasionally, whether that be like an extra top 10 or something like that. But that's the sort of stuff that keeps getting pushed back whenever I try doing it. But that's the plan is always there to try and squeeze more of that kind of thing in. But that is what's coming up on the next couple months of each of the shows. And then if people like this, I'll come back early in July or maybe at the end of June and preview July through September. So let me know if you like getting this heads up and having a rough idea. It is worth mentioning as well that everything's subject to change, because there might be some sci-fi movie that comes out of nowhere where I'm like, crap, we have to squeeze that in, and some things will get pushed back. That happens sometimes on the schedule, so that's the one caveat to me announcing all this early, is that some things might shift around a little bit. Everything I've said will get done, just some may get pushed a little bit, potentially, but anyway, that is what's coming up on the next few months of the movie shows. So obviously you can make suggestions and stuff in comments for the future. Some of it might obviously already be kind of planned for the future, but no harm in suggesting things. So thank you for paying attention to me, to what's effectively been an ad for the next 3 months of content. But people might want to know what to expect and maybe get some of the movies watched in advance and that kind of thing. But thank you very much for joining me. Thanks to everyone who supports us on Patreon. Of course, you can do so as well if you aren't. Patreon.com/MailFuzzTV helps keep all that stuff coming. You get access to the extra reels as well as some other stuff, like even more streams. But that is me, so thank you once again. Keep watching movies, and if you can get it, it's always nice to have diplomatic immunity.